I know most of you believe that racism is dead, but you gotta look around the classroom and see the diversity and see and racism still exists. I'll be telling you guys how racism is still alive today. One of my good friends is from Mississippi, and he said he still gets burning crosses on his front lawn. And he said every 3 years is the average of 3 lynchings still in Mississippi. And at the end of Pine Grove, Mississippi, there's a sign that says the last colored person that was here didn't make it out. I'm sure all of us have been or witnessed any shape or form of racism. And racism not only just towards black people or between black or white people. Today I will be discussing the different types of racism. The first thing I would like to say about racism is that where it is conveyed. First example is the workplace. If you're not a certain descent or you have a certain descent, people tend to shy away from you because the preconceived notion about you or your culture. That is called prejudice. Prejudice is the behavior of prejudgment. Groups of individuals on the race or physical characteristics. Prejudice comes in most as negative, even when one gives credit to a positive feature, like black people are faster than white people, or you can trust your money with a Jewish banker. A prejudice is nonetheless being sounded or affirmed, promoted by these positive prejudices are not necessarily accurate and serve only propagate stereotypes. Example 2, at school, not including students from a particular background in their class activities. And example number 3 is a personal one for me. When I was a junior in high school, I didn't get to start on my football team because my coach said he wanted to keep the defensive line balanced, but basically he was saying he wanted to keep it all white. And now you know the different places racism occurs. Now let's talk about who's racist. Teachers are racist by saying, when you get in trouble in class, by saying all you people are the same. Example number 2, your boss, when your boss gives you trivia work, or they lower the standards for the work that they need you to do so you're able to do it because they don't think you're capable of doing it. And your classmates by singling you out because of your skin color. When you're young, you tell the truth, you're blunt towards different situations. I showed you how being racist. I showed you who is being racist. Now I will be discussing the effects and the effects of racism and it has on our society and how it's still relevant. Being afraid to go to school is effective racism because some people don't want to show their face no more when they're made fun of. Having trouble concentrating, getting tasks done because of the environment. Number 3, lose confidence in their ability to do what they love, and some feel anxious and unhappy. Today I've discussed what racism is and the different forms of racism and who can be affected by it and who's racist. I have a quote. Bob Marley said, until the philosophy which hold one race superior and another inferior is finally permanently discredited and abandoned, everything is war. I say war that until they are no longer first class and second class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is no more significant than the color of his eyes. And we say war that until the basic human rights are equally and guaranteed to all with a great grace by me, I say war. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Kimmy, can you tell us what you thought?
His voice was consistent throughout the whole speech. I really liked how he projected his voice. I wish he kind of made more eye contact with us instead of the note cards. And that's about it.
All right, well, that doesn't give me much time. You hang on for a second then. All right, well, you've got a dramatic statement at the beginning, and you identify what the topic is. It does feel like you are rushing through the opening, and I think you could have a more dramatic impact on the audience if you paced yourself occasionally. Your friend who talks about the lynchings in Mississippi, I think you need to get some backup information on that, because that sounds pretty dramatic, and right now it's secondhand information from an unsighted source, and we need to have, I mean, you're basically making an argument that racism continues and that there are lynchings happening in Mississippi, 3 a year. That's a pretty dramatic charge. So let's get some proof on that other than just I heard from a friend. The claim about discrimination at workplace, at school, those are areas that I think ought to be explored. They are good supporting structure points to have, but I didn't hear any information on any of those points. Just an explanation about what the kind of discrimination might consist of without any demonstration that that is in fact happening. Even some opinion evidence from people who feel that they have been discriminated against, or other than a hypothetical example, some statistical information about lawsuits, or maybe even people have confessed to having engaged in behaviors like this that they didn't realize were perceived as racist or problematic. I think that there are places that you could find information that would make this a little bit stronger. As it is, it's just a claim, and there's not any grounds for it, and the warrant basically comes down to, well, because I can think of the grounds, because I can think of a hypothetical situation, then it must be true. And I'm not sure that that's going to be convincing to most people. The school issue, the closest you get to an example, I think, is your football coach. And you basically say that it's about, like apparently the coach used the line, I want the line balanced. And you make the inference that that's racist because the defensive line was all white. I have no idea what was going on with that defensive line. So I don't know what the coaches, whether or not there was a strength issue, size issue, speed issue. I don't know what he meant by balance. If you thought he meant ethnicity, tell us why you thought that he meant ethnicity. You kind of have to give us an explanation. And it might simply be, when he said balanced and I looked at the line and it was all white guys, I thought to myself, is that what he's talking about? So even if that's not what he meant, even that's not what he meant, that's what you felt, and that's an example of kind of residual type of racism, and I think you could use it then. But maybe he really means, I just want the white guys up front and we're going to use you in a different position. I doubt that anybody said that, but maybe there is some reason to believe that that's the case. If there were other players on the team, for instance, who didn't get that kind of treatment or were not given opportunities when they should have been given opportunities, I think you could use those examples. And by the way, the personal example is good to kind of build some credibility, but you need some other information out there also. And it's not hard to find an example of racism in sports this week. I don't know that you'd have to think very hard to come up with an illustration. Now, where have we found somebody who has perhaps got a racist attitude in sports that other people might have heard about that wouldn't require us to interpret what's going on, but to directly see it? Maybe it's a little too obvious, but I think given the subject matter that you've got, you need some stuff like that. The Bob Marley quote at the end, I think, is, it sounds like a call to action, but what you need to do is show us that we haven't met those standards, and I think that you need a stronger argument to prove that. On delivery, you project very well your voice. It's easy to hear, but there's no variety in the voice. You sound like you're kind of in a hurry. There are places where you need to pause for a moment for effect. You need to give us a chance to have some emotional reaction to what's going on, and you just seem like you're plowing through it. And so you need to adjust a little bit there. I'm going to agree with Kimmy about your eye contact. There's a lot more reading than you want to have in the presentation. All right. Mayor C.